Hey Ellen, how you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm honored. I'm excited. I love connecting with you and sharing energy. And you and I decided to hold a little space and talk about a few things that have been on our heart and mind that we want to share with each other and our communities. I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, thank you. No, I enjoy it. I appreciate it. We didn't we talk about doing this a few months ago, and then I had my surgery, right? So it put a little wrench in but here we are, just like that. Huh?
Just like that, and it's a little wrench, but a divine wrench. Like you needed it. You needed that. You needed to be able to heal and tune up to your next highest good or whatever that looked like. So that took
Yeah.
precedence for sure.
New now moment, and here we are now anyway, right?
And it's kind of like perfect because one of the things we want to talk about is like healing our physical bodies while ascending. And you have lots of experience in it. So do I, but you just got, yeah,
Yeah,
nice fresh experience with your surgery and whatnot. You want to tell all of
right.
us a little bit about it and what went down?
Yeah, I mean, some of my followers have probably already heard about it, but and I've gone through so many things. But in this case, I got brought into another layer of ascension where I ended up just really, really sick, and I fought for a few years to figure out what it is, because obviously I'm an intuitive and I'm a holistic person, and I teach ascension, and so a lot of the work that we're doing is healing our own bodies and going through this process of purging things that no longer serve us. And it's a process, isn't it? Because it's like 1 year you give up one thing, and it's hard, isn't it, to just let something go, like quitting drinking coffee or something like that. Well, in this case, I got brought into realizing that my breast implants were killing me, and they were really literally killing me. And I kept thinking that I had probably gotten sick from the smoking that I did, because I had quit smoking. As you know, we did a video on that a long time ago. But I thought that I got sick from that, maybe because I was brought through that journey by angelic beings. And so I went on the journey of healing that lung and rebuilding the cells and rebuilding my lung itself. And I went from flatlining 4 times to literally like, I can really breathe now. This one's still got a little work, but it's been 4 years, and they say you can rebuild your lungs after 7. So, and I was diagnosed with COPD and all that stuff, but I don't have any of it, like I'm doing fine. But I wasn't doing fine in the sense that I was still fit. I was fading away. My hair started to all fall out. I started to go blind in one of my eyes. I started to get so bedridden. It's just like, it was like have you ever stuck your finger accidentally in a light socket, and how it kind of sucks you in a little bit? You're trying to pull your finger out and it's sucking you in. Well, the bed was doing that to me. It was kind of like I was just being sucked into that bed, because my body didn't have any more life force in me to get up out of it. So I was getting sicker and sicker and sicker. And all while you guys were interviewing me, and all while I was doing my groups and everything else, I was just like trying to understand why I was that sick. It didn't make sense, because I live holistically. I eat nothing but raw fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, and beans. Literally, that's all I eat. And then sometimes I might sneak some chips. But other than that, I've given up coffee. I've given up alcohol. I've given up, cigarettes. I've given up everything else. And I live very crystically and holistically and clean. So I couldn't understand why I was sick.
Right. And you're like, what the heck? I'm doing all the right things.
Right. That's what this whole journey. Right. That's what the whole ascension's about. And after having my activation, of course, I saw that we're creators, and that I create my own reality. And if we live in alignment with source and with our true design, we will be healthy, and we can cure disease, and we can overcome things. So I really wasn't getting it until I realized that, well, wait a minute, I do have fake boobs in. And, obviously it was something I did in my 20s, when I was unconscious, and you know, I was in the mind control program, the Monarch program, and the MK Ultra and the sex slave programming. We never done a video on that, but we can one day.
I'd be honored to when you're.
I was very hardcore in that. And when I got activated, I broke out and I saw the fragments of my mind, and I saw what they had done to split the mind. And it was really, really incredible. But I was very much in that programming. It's a terrible thing that they're doing there. But, and sadly, it affects so much of the United States, let alone others around the world. But it's really rampant in the United States. And anyhow, yeah, so that's how I got them, why I got them. And as I had my awakening, I went through all these other things, learned to overcome smoking, I've gone through, you know, Ascension is just, it's a lot, right? It's a lot to go through, and depending on the souls too, because that's one of the reasons why twin flames have a hard time sometimes coming together, is depending on your soul journey and your contracts. Certain twins are dealing with a lot heavier stuff than others. So, you know, in my case, we had a lot of heavy stuff to move through. We're some of the first waivers. So we've been carving and pioneering through some of the densest energies to have the great awakening that we're in right now. But anyhow, it was the boobs. And thankfully, I realized what it was, because I really don't think I would have made it much longer. I'm a strong person, and I'm very strong. Yeah. But that was it. It was too much. My body could not take it anymore. And it's because as long as you have those things in your body, they're taking your life force from you. You may not realize it. For years, I didn't. For 20 something years, I didn't realize what they were doing to me. But they're causing your immune system to have to work overtime to try to push something foreign out of the body that shouldn't be there. And so your immune system's fighting the whole entire time they're there, no breaks. You don't get a babysitter for your immune system. Your immune system's full-time overworked from the second that they go into your body. And so over time, it started to really drain my life force. But in addition to that, I was also shown by the light beings, because they were speaking to me in light language. And you work in this industry, in this field, with the healing arts, so you deal with a lot of people that have different gifts with light language and things, right? For me, do you speak it?
I do. I haven't shared it publicly yet, but I do a lot on my own, and I write it a little bit. Yeah. I mostly channel it. Comes through my hands a lot, and then I'm singing and chanting it a lot lately too. But it can come. For those of you who are just tuning in, if you're not familiar with light language, it's this incredible universal light language that many of us can remember at a soul level, and it can come through in all kinds of different ways, via writing or painting or singing or chanting or speaking it. All kinds of different things. So, and you feel it. It's something you know it when you feel it and you hear it, and it resonates. It has a frequency to it.
Yeah, thank you for that. So then I just want to add on that for me, I don't necessarily speak it, although after these got removed, I started to be able to speak it a little bit. It started to come through, but I've always been able to receive it. And for me, it's like a tapping in my DNA that I get, and I get the symbols too. So I see the light language symbols written into my DNA throughout my body, and I feel the tap, 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 chick, chick, chick. And it's almost like an ant whisper by these other beings that I'm feeling in my DNA. And so that's how I receive it. And then I turn around and translate it in human language in the densest 3D way to explain it to anybody and everybody, right? So that's kind of maybe my gift, is to take that and turn around and just say it to anybody that can understand what I'm trying to say, if they're open.
They're open. And it sounds like a reward for your hard work too. You've always been able to hear it, and it was always able to resonate with you, you said. And then after you went through your surgery and you started healing back up, it started to come in, you said, right? Or you started to be able to do the symbols?
It's always come in ever since I was small, but I was able to now speak it. Where before I could hear the words and I could understand what they're saying. And I know people that speak it that don't understand what they're saying. They're not they're not receiving the actual message. They're just translating what the words are that they're hearing. For me, I receive it and I understand the message and I can translate it in our language. But now I'm also getting some of the words to go with it so that I can translate what it means, what this word means and what they're saying. So anyhow, I just thought that was very interesting, but they did show me in light language. In my way of explaining what light language is it's really the star languages that were our original language, premortal, before we came to Earth. And so, and there's many languages, as I understand, with the star languages also, because there's many planetary systems, but I do believe that there was an original core language, but I could be wrong about that. But anyway, it's your star.
Find out in beautiful divine time, hopefully.
Right. It doesn't even really matter. It just matters that you're receiving it and you're understanding it right as we go. Yeah. But anyhow, so I was shown a lot of things through light language, through the translation of light language, surrounding the breast implants and how they affect your body, why they're bad for you, and how they affect your ascension process, because, everything, and this is where I want to bring you in with your background, everything that we go through that has a physical, that causes us to not physically feel well affects our spirit, right? We have a mind, body, soul, they all go together. All four of your bodies need to be in alignment in order for you to truly be healthy, happy, whole, and ascend. And you can't just focus on your mental health and not worry about your physical health. And you can't just focus on your physical health and not worry about your spiritual health. They all need to be, you need to have a space for all of them. And they all matter and they're all connected. So if you miss the boat on one of them, you're going to have a problem later, right?
It's true. And your vessel will let you know if you're missing the boat.
Eventually, because mine didn't for a long time. And that's right. the weird, that's where I think a lot of people are having a hard time receiving my story, because I'm just here sharing my story, but I think they have a hard time receiving somebody's story if it is a mirror for them of something within their self that they either haven't been brought through yet or they don't want to for whatever reason, right?
I think so. I know for me, I had a lot of different things go on within my body and within my vessel. And I've been through all kinds of injuries. I broke my back a few times. But the thing I'm thinking about most when you're sharing, Ellen, is that I also get gout attacks. I get really severe gout from drinking and eating bad foods. And then also on the mindfulness of it, when I looked it up in Louise Hay, You Can Heal Your Life, it was impatience and need to dominate. And I'm like, what the fuck? I'm so nice to everybody. I'm so kind. I show up for work on time. I give the best service. I'm nice to all my friends. Like, what is going on? And I definitely, looking back, was like controlling with myself in a lot of ways. And sometimes like even my family members out of love, like overly concerned or things like that. And then I'd be so mean to myself, and I was so mean to myself. I was talking shit to myself all day, every day, telling myself the worst things in the world. And I was being really impatient with spirit and being like, what the fuck, angels? Like, why aren't we? What's going on here? Blah, blah, blah. And what would happen is I'd get these gout attacks. And I had one doctor when it first happened, when I was young, like 21 or 22, who told me he thought it was gout, but then he said he was wrong because he tested it. He put this big needle in my synovial joint in my toe, and they tried to get synovial fluid out, and it was so painful, and no fluid came out. And he's like, I must be wrong. Like, I really thought that was what was going on. And I was like, thank God, I don't want to be like 22 and young with gout. Like, okay, great. But he was right. And it took 10 years before it got diagnosed because it never came up on all of the tests. And it wasn't until and then I started doing all these things that were terrible for my body and for gout. Like I did the paleo diet super hard for a long time, and I lost a bunch of weight, but then I was having these gout attacks that they were calling like tendonitis and arthritis, and doing all these other tests, and didn't know what was wrong with me, but I wouldn't be able to walk for like weeks at a time. And it was just the most excruciating pain. And so when I finally got a reconstruction on my ankle, my doctor at the time found all these gout crystals and tested them. I was like, oh, I'm sorry to tell you, like, you have gout. And I was like, thank you. He's like, I've never heard anyone ever tell me, like, thank you for saying you have gout. And I'm like, because I suspected this in my body for a long time and I wasn't getting the answers or validation outside of myself, and I was treating it completely wrong. And now I can embrace this differently and like move forward here. And so it's so crazy how like, and so for me, when I look back on my soul path, I'm like, oh shit, every time I got a gout attack, I deserved it because I was eating this food, I was acting this way with myself, I was pushing spirit in that way or whatever it was. And I can see the recipe that I created for it. And now I did have one recently, but I think it was like, it was very small and short. And I think it was like maybe some karma kind of moving out because I hadn't had one in so long and I had a lot of stress going on. And it was an opportunity for me to allow people to be there for me and support me where I hadn't before. And so it was very interesting, but it was a short one. And so I'm just grateful because I've like really healed that and I know what to do about it now. But when it comes down to it, when you look back on your path or learn about these things, we create this stuff because of what it is that we're doing and the way we're showing up in the world and how we allow others to influence us and our thoughts about ourselves.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up because I was just thinking that really that's what the emotional code therapy really is about, is identifying where you have emotions that are blocked in your being. And as an intuitive, I don't know about you, but for me, I can see that in people's bodies. When I first had my awakening, I could just drive by people and see where they had blocked emotions or energy. And so I could see it in a woman's elbow that was a total stranger just driving by and received that she was pushed down the stairs by her brother and it broke her elbow and she had trauma, emotions lodged there in her elbow related to that wound and that experience. And so that's really what happens when we pick up addictions or we get illness of any other form or any form of discordance in our bodies or our minds is really coming from blocked emotions. So for example, with the breasts and the lungs, because of the smoking, right, is really related to a couple of different things. That the lungs were related to traumas that I experienced as a child. So most people who are smokers and most people who have addiction have been abused as children. It's scientifically proven. So, you know, people that have been abused as children end up lodging trauma in their body somewhere from that. For me, it was the lungs. And therefore, I then started to get in that reverse programming of having the cigarette smoking to try to fill that trauma with what the cigarettes I learned were a reverse program for filling the Holy Spirit. You're looking for the Holy Spirit when you do this. You want that prana, right? That's why you're smoking. You want the prana. And yet it's a reverse program.
I love that. Yes. Talk more about that. That's so true. And that's what everyone's craving when they're looking for that breath.
They want the Holy Spirit. They want to be fulfilled, whole, full, right? And you're feeling empty because you got fragmented or fractured in your soul. So you're looking for that wholeness again of yourself and therefore the Holy Spirit within you. And you've been then lured into getting a false way to do it. Because when you do that, you get a temporary fulfillment, a temporary feeling of the Holy Spirit. You feel full for a minute. You get all those drugs, those chemicals, they're going to your brain and you're getting that moment of satisfaction. But it's temporary and it's false, and therefore it keeps you chasing that over and over and over and over and over.
And you don't even get full breath. Like when you were just doing it by example, like I've seen that with so many people. I'm lucky in this lifetime, I never picked up cigarette smoking, thank goodness, but everyone I love pretty much has. And you're right. And I worked in restaurants forever and I would still go take a smoke break, even though I didn't smoke cigarettes, because I'd be like, I deserve 10 minutes too. But as soon as people take that break, And it's very short, upper chest. It's a very like shallow breath, and it's not even a full breath that people are
Yeah.
putting in while like, you know, trying to bring in even more of that. So
Yeah, I need to do a video on that for people on the smoking. I never did, but I do want to do that to try to help them understand how to quit, because it actually becomes fairly easy when you understand what's going on with your mind, body, and soul. And then it's really just a rewiring, and you know, you have to go to war with Satan in some ways, but you know that that's what you're doing, and you do it, and you don't back down, and then it's over and you win. But anyway, so as far as the lungs, it was trauma and grief, right? Grief from the suffering. And as far as the breasts, in my case, I didn't have a mother when I grew up, and the mother is the nurturer, right? And so there was a wound there from not having that nurturing person in my life to comfort me when I needed it. And so I was always going out to the men for that kind of comforting. I was looking for nurturing from my male counterparts. And then I was getting wounded by them because they were not healthy and whole, and I wasn't healthy and whole. So I was attracting, toxic partners, and they were then wounding that need to be nurtured and cultivated. And of course, I got the breast implants to attract that nurturing affection from them, if you will. Right. I was kind of programmed into these programs that was how you get attention from the world, even. Right. And even I was a swimsuit model back then.
I was going to say, you were a model. You were in deep with that programming.
Very much. And you don't get jobs if you don't have fake boobs and have that look and things like that. It's very much a draconian program. And it's very much mind control and sex slavery programs in there. And so, but anyhow, so most of those girls have eating disorders and breast implants, and they're not making any money. They're basically prostituting themselves. And there's a lot there. I was cognizant of that when I was in that program and fought it and put myself through college. But I didn't understand it was a mind control program back then, right? I just understood that I could see all of these girls selling themselves for diamonds to old men. You know what I mean? They weren't happy. Most of them killed themselves or died from alcohol poisoning, or some of them are still real messy, souls. But it's because they don't understand. They don't understand, right? They don't understand they're in the matrix and they're being loosed. And so anyhow, it's very tragic. So I just want to throw this out there for anybody watching, that obviously anytime I'm discussing these things is definitely not coming from a place of judgment. Because I know that a lot of times when you say things, it sounds like you're being religious, or it sounds like you're condemning people. You should do this or don't do that, but really it's not coming from that at all. It's coming from true experience and just understanding, what I've gone through in my own journey to save my own soul and to exit the matrix. And I've battled really horrendous things. And so I'm not coming from judgment. I'm coming from actual experience. And I hope no soul in the whole universe goes through the things I went through. If I could prevent anybody from going through it, I would.
I think that's love.
Yeah.
That's true. Showing up with love and saying, all right, this all happened, but all I can do is share my truth and my experience. You're going to do whatever you're going to do, but I can share my wisdom that I've learned along the way. And I honor that. And I think loving.
Right. And it's hard because, your psyche, the way the psyche works in the human mind, it's not going to receive things. You can tell somebody 500 people can tell you something, and they're all telling you the same thing, and you're not listening. And until your soul's ready, one day somebody's going to tell you and you're going to be like, oh, thank you so much. But you weren't listening to the 500 people before that tried to tell you. Right. And I get it.
Love it.
But that's the way the psyche works, is that it's so frail sometimes that it's hard for the human to really like absorb what they need to absorb yet until their soul's really truly ready for it. And so
true. And I laugh about it with myself thinking back, and I see it all the time. And I work with people, and I feel so like young and such an infant in all this. I'm 35 years old now in this lifetime, and I've been doing this work, professionally for like 5 years now. And it's so crazy because I've been able to see it with myself and with others. And like, there are things I will teach to some of my favorite clients that I've seen every week for like, years now, that I've been trying to like express. And then all of a sudden they'll come and be like, oh, I learned this today because so-and-so said it this way. And I'm like, that's exactly what I was saying this whole time. And same with myself. There's so many times where I've had these aha moments, and I'm like, oh, all those people were trying to tell me that, and I just couldn't understand hear it. And that's where I trust so much in the soul's path and this evolution. And as we're ascending into this whole, from 3D to 5D and this whole new way of being and what that looks like, a lot of times I get shit for this one. A lot of times people are like, oh, it's just one day everybody's just going to kind of wake up and we're going to be in this like utopia and we're going to all remember. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, I feel like each soul's got to do that in their own beautiful time. And that's why we do coming in at all these different times. And we don't all have the same birthday or the same skill sets or the same soul memories or missions. And I said, from what I've understood, for me to get to that fifth dimensional way of being, I had to go through hell and back and be sick of my own shit, as you were talking about, and like really ready to recalibrate and reach for more and look outside of myself from a different perspective. That's how I got there. I was like, I don't know. I didn't experience this like sudden.
If the whole world went into an ascension like that at one time right now, the world would collapse. It would be incredibly bad for everyone. And so the divine knows that. And also there's many souls that are older than other souls, much older and much more advanced and evolved. And those souls are, there's other souls that are going to be living and reincarnating many other years. So, it's all divinely orchestrated. And it's perfect
for.
Right, exactly. And so nobody should be trying to compare with where somebody else is, because you'll go crazy doing that. You will go crazy doing that. Because you don't know if you're going to have multiple, unless you're shown. You don't know what lifetime you're on. Some of us are shown, but until then, you need to just be where you are. I always try to tell people that. Just be where you are. That's where you're at right now. And now's all you got. So just be here now.
Be here now. Every woman. Oh, go ahead. What are you going to say?
I was just going to say, why make a fuss about it? You're in the now, and that's all you have. So just be here.
If you have this present moment, and that's where you have the opportunities to ascend and to do all these things, because you're being present and you're letting your perspective shift and change and ebb and flow. And we have this chance right now, and it's an opportunity. Each moment is an opportunity, and it's what you want to do with it. And every human that I know, for the most part, even I've had the opportunity to work with like a lot of people who were criminals and sex offenders and people who've sat in the dark and stuff too. And even those people who I've sat with, every single one of us has this tiny little light in us. We have this purpose. We have this drive to want to be a better person the next day, to start getting control over who we are and to feel better and to call in more peace. And so I trust in that and in the human spirit. And I feel like that's what is going to lead us most through this whole ascension, individually and collectively. It's when we start to really call in ourselves and our own little lights and meet ourselves with honor and love and forgiveness, and start finding what lights us up and plugging in, our passions in the world and finding purpose, is when we start to really find peace. And I have a lot of faith in a lot of the humans right now. Yeah, some of them are going to stay programmed forever, but there's so many who are ready and willing and want to. And like, I'm not going to close off a bridge. Like, I'm always going to have my hand out there, planting seeds, being there for support. The only one who can do it, I believe, the only person who can heal you is you. And that all the rest of us are just supporters and helpers and teachers, or people who said, this is how I did it. You can figure out how you can do it. But, that's where I get a lot of faith, because I see that light in so many people, even people who are just, down and out on themselves or the things that have happened. There's still that flicker in there that you want to heal and become a better person.
Yeah. Those that are ready to be activated can be activated,
Yeah.
And that's also divine, because they won't get activated if they're not ready for it. So it's all divine, and it's all dependent upon the soul. And souls can also quantum jump and timeline jump if they're truly ready to have profound shift in their consciousness or their reality. So again, they're also the author of their own story if they want to be. But again, you also have to be open to that. So I think that well, what else were we going to talk about? That we were talking about how sometimes it's difficult for people to receive new layers of consciousness, if you will, or new information. Because isn't that what consciousness is, or light is? It's like a stream of consciousness. It's a stream of information or knowledge or wisdom that comes from the cosmos, especially that which is Christic, right? Truth. So, but it's hard sometimes for that stream to come through, even if it's coming from a person, or it's coming just from light codes, or it's coming from wherever. It's hard sometimes for it to come through clearly when there's energy blocks, right? And energy blocks, especially if it's coming through the crown or from a person telling you something, are going to start with your crown and your sixth chakra. So your sixth and seventh chakra have to be open in order for you to really receive new information and allow your psyche to absorb what's being presented to you. And that's where a lot of people get in trouble, is having a closed mind, a closed crown chakra, and a closed third eye, where you get set on your beliefs and you think you got it all figured out, so you're not willing to open so that you can see something that maybe you weren't seeing before. And that's really where a lot of our work is also, isn't it?
That's where I found it, working on those tiny little baby steps each day, and, and holding space for myself and trusting, like, I can have an open crown chakra and, be 10 years old, and I'm still going to evolve and learn new things and let things come through that. There isn't like an end game in this. I think a lot of people think, okay, great, like I'm going to be perfectly healed and perfectly at peace and everything in my life is going to be wonderful. And it's kind of interesting because I feel like the whole like spiritual ascension is kind of like, okay, I get it now. Like, please, sir, may I have some more? Like, it's like like when you know better, then your higher self holds you accountable to do better. And the more information you choose to open yourself to, the more responsibility you have within yourself and the planet. And so it's so interesting because everyone wants it, but it also comes with really being integral to yourself first and foremost, and then to those around you and your land and your countries and so on and so forth.
Yeah, and that's a really valid and great point. I'm glad you brought that up, because that is key for a lot of people who are looking to be on the ascension path. Because I deal with a lot of people that come to me and they get angry because they haven't been getting access to the Akashic records, or they didn't have their third eye open, or they didn't have the Kundalini activation, or whatever it is, and they're angry. They're in that they're angry about it because they feel like they're, why do you get it and I don't get it, kind of a thing. But part of it's also coming from the fact that that energy alone is going to hold them from it. And isn't that energy is going to hold you from it? That's like being jealous of somebody else and expecting the world to give you something. And the world doesn't give you things when you're all jealous and bitter. That's not the way the universe and law of attraction works, right?
So when you have an overwhelm, and it blocks off your chakras for receiving because you're creating separation. Doesn't work that way at all. You just create more of your own shitstorm.
Correct.
Vortex.
Right. And when you're mad at somebody else for having achieved it, you're out of alignment also. And the reason you haven't achieved it is because you're out of alignment. So your job is to get in alignment, not be angry at somebody else that has it, or that's had access to it, or that has evolved beyond you. Because again, there are souls here that are light years away from others. That means you may not have an enlightenment experience in this lifetime. It's gonna be rare. Even though we're having a great awakening in the collective, and we've reached a level where more than half of the humanity is aware of what we're experiencing with the cabal and all those other issues. being aware and awakened in that regard isn't the same thing as enlightenment. They're very different things. And so, and I think a lot of people need to hear and understand that too, because, and even with enlightenment or awakening, there's still layers of that, just like there's layers of ascension. So, and granted, there's profound activations that happen for those that are truly activated in light body and light codes and everything, that are given the mark of God. Those are the 144,000. And those are the ones that they can all see each other. There's no way to fool those beings. They're definitely can't fool the gods, if you will. But either which way, every soul just needs to be where they are now and focus on where they are now. And I don't know why we brought this up. It was because we were having issues with people that we try to share consciousness with, that they're just not ready to, even evolved souls. Yeah. What else were we going to get out there?
I don't know, but when you were thinking, it made me think of something I get some flack for too, but you know, we keep fighting for this whole equality thing, and I just don't see any sense of equality at all in this world in any way. Or like, you know, I guess I honor fairness, but I don't see any single sovereign individual's path even having the potential to be equal to another. And we put so much emphasis on this equality in all these different parts of our society and within ourselves. And I think it's so important to just honor you and your path and who you are at this time, and know that you are such a unique soul here for such unique purposes to plug in, to learn, and then to plug in your own purpose in light. And the only way you find that is by following your heartstrings, or what feels most in alignment with you at that time. And when we ignore that, like Elam was saying earlier, we create a lot of suffering in our own lives. But then also, you know, that's what holds back, you know, the path of moving forward for yourself and for the collective. And we just have to wait and see what happens.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of people just don't understand when they get into that. That's also a program, that when they get into that program, that they don't realize that their true reality and their true manifestation of whatever there is in their world is coming from lifetimes of their own energy and their own deeds, if you will. So whatever is in your reality right now is a manifestation of your energy. It has nothing to do with fairness. It has nothing to do with you got a better chance than I got a chance, or whatever it is. It has to do with your soul and your energy, including the family that you were born into. You chose that. You chose it. No matter how hard it was, you chose it for soul expansion. And so if you get stuck in that whole wanting equality nonsense, you're missing the whole point spiritually of the fact that you chose to come here and have a unique experience, even extraordinarily challenging, for your soul's expansion. I like to joke and say that my spirit guides know that this is my last incarnation, so they're giving me the grand finale, and boy are they. But you know, it's soul expansion, and if I didn't go through those extraordinary experiences in my life, I wouldn't have had an awakening, a full-blown spiritual awakening that changed my world forever, and also graduated me from the earth plane. I'm a graduate now. I don't have to come back to this reality anymore. I'm finished. I'm done. Finito. Kaput. The end, you know, but I wouldn't have reached that place if I didn't go through those other hardships, and after going through them, do the soul work to understand what they meant for my soul. Because I could have easily been, in my life, I could have easily been blaming men and blaming my family and blaming everybody and drinking and partying and being a trashy person and hating the world and telling the government they owed me and everything else for my problems. Because boy, did I get violated in the human world a lot. And if I had attorneys, I would be really rich right now. But my religious background taught me that it was bad to stick up for yourself, which was a big no-no also. Of course you need to stand up for yourself. But anyhow, either which way, I could have been a victim, and I could have blamed the whole world and just repeated my karma and come back in another lifetime and did it again. But I chose to try to dig deeper and to find the answer and to find the truth. And that's really what we're doing in our ascension journey, isn't it? And our shadow healing is to really dig into understanding spiritually what it means to you. Because at the end of the day, you're only human for a very bleep in time. It's not who you truly are. And if you don't get the spiritual message of why you're here and what you're doing, you're missing the whole point. And that's what the cabal has everybody doing, is running to work and working 4 jobs and paying all these bills and fixing this and living up to the Joneses and buying the nice car. And you're so distracted with all those things that you're not focused on your soul itself, who you really are, why you're here, why the world is the way that it is, and you're living an illusion entirely. And of course, you're going to have to come back. A lot of those souls are, because you're not getting through the lesson of it, and you forgot that you came here to assist humanity, and we really are in a spiritual war at this time. We are.
And no one was taught it, that's what encourages us to be brave, is like, all right, we got to look outside of all the things that we were taught, because all of our systems, the societies and schools and religions and whatnot, taught us to constantly operate in loops of guilt, shame, criticism, fear, competition, jealousy, anxiety, all of these things that are lower vibrational feelings that keep us constantly disservicing ourselves, and then not being able to even look outside of ourselves or our own things that are happening, because and that's intended to be that way to keep us from enlightenment. When really, if you're like, okay, yeah, you know what, I'm stressed all the time and I'm operating on guilt and shame and fear. Yep, fear, a lot of fear, just paying the bills, all the things, whatever it is, that's your opportunity to say, okay, wait a minute, something's not in alignment anymore. And like, yeah, I'm a human. I've got commitments. I got to make these bills. I got to do these things. But why am I letting all of these energies control me and my vessel and my presence at all times? And I found for me, that's where I got a lot of the aha moments and the awakenings, being like, I don't want to feel this way. And it takes time. Like Ellen and I want to stress that yeah, there's such a thing as instant manifestation. If, like Ellen said, you're ready and your soul and your consciousness can handle that paradigm shifting moment at that time. But I know for me, it was a slow, sweet burn, and I had to bring this vessel back to life, and I had to show up every day and do my tapping and do my yoga and drink my freaking celery juice and all of the things that were going to bring me back to life. And that took devotion to myself, to my inner temple, to this whole entire way of being. And then with that devotion also comes integration. And integration happens after you're able to reflect and really start embodying some of these things that you're learning. And if you're someone who's going through pain and has been on this path, I just encourage you to hold space for yourself and keep showing up for your vessel every day, because you will heal it. You will, if you show up for it, but it will not happen overnight. And I mean, I know that happens for some people, and there are miracles out there if they're able to handle it, but that was not my experience. And my experience was continuing to show up for myself each day and allowing these things to integrate and doing the true work that's required in order to integrate the frequencies.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And it's kind of like you didn't like, for me, I didn't just start smoking one day and quit. I smoked for a lot of years. So the undoing of that also took time. And I want to, because I just remembered that I think we talked a little bit about another subject related to this that I really also want to bring up for anybody watching, because there is this mindset in the spiritual community that if you are high vibrational, that you can just think a nice positive thought and you won't be sick, or you won't get sick, or you won't have a problem with your body because you're so high vibe in your thoughts that you're just going to prevent that. When you are doing something to your body that is toxic, like smoking cigarettes or drinking alcohol or shooting heroin or, snorting cocaine or having fake boobs in your body that are plastic, full of formaldehyde and all kinds of other deadly poisons, no matter how positive you think your thoughts are, you're not in alignment with truth. there's discord. On one hand, you're saying positive, lovely things, and on the other hand, you're doing very not positive, ugly things. And I'm not saying that to condemn anyone. I'm just saying it's not positive to poison our bodies. Aren't we all disturbed right now at the realization of how our governments have been poisoning us by putting fluoride in our water and spraying our food with deadly chemicals and spraying our air and everything else? And aren't we very frustrated that there's 7,000 chemicals put in those cigarettes that kill people? They're designed to kill people, and they're killing people by the millions. And how come we're not realizing that those plastics that we know we don't want in our oceans are also going in our bodies and killing us? We can't, that's discordant. And so on one hand, there's this disconnect or disassociative thought process in the collective, where you think that just because you think a positive thought, it's not going to happen to you, which is not the case. Your body's designed the same as mine, the same as everybody's. When you put poison in the body, eventually it's going to harm the body. You may not get sick the same way this one did or that one did, but the likelihood that you're sick or that you're going to get sick or that you're doing damage is already there, for one. And for two, there is an esoteric aspect to, and a spiritual and karmic aspect to harming the self. You have karma for harming others. You also have karma for harming the self. And so there's that. And then thirdly, and this is the main point that I wanted to make, that when you are raising in vibration, people are confused about this. They think that by staying in positive thought and doing all these wonderful, lovely things for yourself, that you're in high vibration, which, yes, those are all high vibrational things to do for yourself. But the truth is that the higher that you vibrate and the more that you ascend, the more you're gonna purge those fake boobs, that you're gonna purge the coffee, you're gonna purge the cigarettes, you're gonna purge the alcohol, you're gonna get rid of the meats, you're gonna get rid of things, because you're more high vibe when you are purging those things, which means you're gonna go through some sickness and things as they cleanse out of you. You're not more high vibe.
Are a real deal.
You're not more high vibe just because you haven't gotten sick yet. That's a screwy mentality that isn't really the truth of how it is. What you're seeing in the physical world isn't really what's going on in the energetic reality. So the more high vibe that a soul gets, the more their body, their vessel cannot and will not, and their high soul will not tolerate those things inside the body anymore. Really. Layer upon layer as you go through ascension. Am I right?
Oh, that's how it was for me. I feel like we get to go through several dark nights of the souls, but one of my major ones was in 2017 as well. And I ended up going completely vegan and like gluten-free, sugar-free, the whole thing for like 8 months. And I still am primarily plant-based. Like I can feel if something gets a little out of balance, I'm like, oh no, I got to pull myself right back in. And you have to pair these amazing, beautiful thoughts that we have. They are important. It is vital to co-create and have these positive thoughts. But if you don't pair them with action steps and doing the actual work and leading by true example, like that's where this is where the bridge lies, in the way you treat yourself and the way you show up in this world and the way you interact. And if you aren't doing that and you're just on this one loop, like Elam was saying, then you don't have the opportunity to bring your actions and your thoughts in your body and your temple into alignment.
Right. But I do just notice that kind of mindset happens a lot in the spiritual community, and it causes a lot of confusion for the collective, because they're hearing one spiritual teacher say, oh, I'm high vibe, I can just think it away. And then they're following them while I've seen some pretty evolved souls, and I myself was one of them, but I didn't get asked to teach until I got over the smoking. I think they didn't want me coming on smoking while I was talking about spiritual stuff, because they knew better than me, right? They're smarter than me, of course. So, but, but I do see others, and I'm not saying this out of judgment. I'm just saying that at some point, those things do have to be purged. It's not in alignment with your soul. It's not that you're bad for doing it. It's just that, if you're really getting in alignment, you're not in alignment there. You can't do the talking on one hand and the walking in the other direction. It's a problem.
Can't. And it's like, you're like, I was thinking about it earlier, like my vessel is so much stronger and I'm really ready to like release more weight again. And I'm like, okay, I'm moving around like amazing. I'm feeling amazing. This is great, but I'm not moving, you know, my weight again. And I'm like, I'm really ready for that. And so I just talked to my guides about it. And then right away, all of these resources in the most weird way come up about these Ayurvedic teachings, which I had learned about when I lived in Boulder, Colorado, like 8 years ago or so. And some of the women I was working with were trying it. And I was like, oh my gosh. And back then it was like, I didn't even want to drink anything warm, like room temperature or tea, like forget about it. I only wanted like ice water all the time and stuff. And my eating patterns were like completely opposite of what like they were calling in at the time. And like, I wasn't ready for it, but the knowledge was there. The opportunity was there. The examples were there. The wisdom was there, but I wasn't ready for my consciousness to accept it. I wasn't even on like positive affirmations at that time. So I think a lot of the time it can be some cognitive dissonance where it's like, okay,
yes,
I'm going to try to stay in this positive thing. But really all you do is yourself a disservice if you're not looking at the truth. And it's not that hard when you look at the truth and you're like, okay, I know what I'm doing wrong. And like, I can try to do it a little better and then booster it up, you know, bolster it up with these amazing positive affirmations and say, you know what, Mandee, I forgive you. Yeah. You only liked ice water back then, but now you're ready to drink teas and do all this. And you know what, you know better now. So you're doing better now. That's where this positive talk really comes in. It becomes super powerful for, I've noticed myself and many others.
Yeah. It moves you through things, but you have to face the things first that you got to move through. Right. And I think too, as much as suffering's not necessary, it's necessary until you realize it's not necessary. Right. But it has a very, right. But it has a very powerful power of persuasion in suffering where you're not going to listen to things until you suffer enough. So for those, and I'm a stubborn person. So I've had to learn this the hard way with spirit, that my stubbornness is useless unless I'm using it to follow what only the spirit shows me. If I'm stubborn about anything first, I'm doomed. I have to wait until the spirit shows me and stay open and stay passive and stay waiting and all that until I get my message. And then when I get it, then I'm stubborn as a motherfucker. That nothing's going to stop me because I know it came from the divine, and therefore I'm not backing down ever. But until then, that stubbornness can block you from everything beautiful.
Well, and it's just ego.
It's ego. It's ego. So again, staying open first until the divine shows me. And that's where we were talking before we were recording about the whole, what good is your will if it's not aligned with divine will? It's useless and it will create suffering. You know, it's gonna. It's not because you're being punished. It's just because the divine knows better than you do what's good for you. Why can't you just trust? But, you know, that's part of what the spiritual journey is about on earth, is going through that whole putting your hand on the stove where mommy told you not to, so you can feel what it feels like to burn. You burn and you learn.
You burn and learn in all the ways.
And maybe you're not
step by step, and we all have our own little paths. And your soul, if you take it just one step at a time, okay, this one's in alignment and this is safe. This is giving me anxiety. This isn't feeling right. I don't know. Mom told me no, all these things. Go and do it anyway. Then the suffering happens. Then it brings you, then you have an opportunity to steer back into your path. But then we have all of this, you know, this victimhood that comes from the suffering that we were kind of talking about a little bit earlier. So sometimes people, depending on what happened, you know, it's not okay ever what's happened to us if it was abusive or manipulative or harmful. But we always have an opportunity to choose how we show up in the present, regardless of what happened in the past. And there's always an opportunity to step a little bit more into forgiveness just for yourself, even through the worst of the worst things, and saying, okay, that happened, that was terrible, but it doesn't have an effect on who I am now or what it is I do. Now, the little boy who burned his hand, or whoever it was, the kid who burned their hand, they're going to remember, they might have a scar now that is going to remind them not to touch that stove, or just to be maybe a little more careful or mindful when around it or when cooking.
Yeah, you burn and you learn. I like to say that it's tattooed into my soul, meaning that I was a stubborn fool and didn't get the message over and over and over 5,479 lifetimes before. And then I finally burned so much from it, it tattooed my soul. I will never forget that lesson ever again. And you're never going to take me from it because I know what I know. You know what I'm saying? And that's really where a lot of our wisdom comes from. And I think that that's where a lot of people, get frustrated because they don't understand that when you're talking, you're speaking from true experience and wisdom. And that's very different from somebody that read it online and understood what the words meant and figured out how to use them so that they can say them to sound important when they're talking about that subject. Because there's a lot of people that do that about how to raise children and they don't have children of their own, or what enlightenment's about, but they haven't been enlightened, or what it's like to be Black and they're not Black, or what it's like to give birth and they're not a woman. You can't speak on something really unless you've had experience. And that's really where a lot of the true activated souls, those who are activated in the 144th, come from. They've had thousands and thousands and thousands of years of lifetime that's compiled into one consciousness in their being in this reality. And they have so much more wisdom within them than most of everyday Joes could possibly comprehend. And that's not an egoic thing. It's just that soul has been living in dimensions and realities and lifetimes over and over, and they've developed and collected a tremendous soul lessons through their experience. And that's hard to grasp in the human world, because sometimes you might have a baby and you think you're the parent of that baby, but that baby might be one of those very evolved souls that's coming to help you. And so people get caught in the illusion of this earth world, and they don't realize to look at the soul inside of each person so that they understand what the message is for them. What is that person saying? What do they have to bring to the table? Because the human illusions are kind of, they get in the way, don't they? Just even looking at people, your human mind wants to look at somebody and think that you got them all figured out, and you think you know who they are because the way they dress, or they have an earring in their nose, or whatever it is, and it is so not at all what we really are as souls.
No. And the real true dirty work is right with yourself in your own present life, in your own current reality. And yes, we can travel to all these amazing other dimensions in the astral and see all these other things. But when it comes down to it, it's the integrity. It's the pairing the mindfulness with the actual action steps to bring you into even more alignment. And when you start getting a taste of it, you get thirsty for more. And your higher self holds you accountable. It's like the more you know, the less you know, and then you keep going and you keep expanding, and you will end up holding yourself to a different standard depending on where you're vibrating. And then if you find yourself in comparison or in judgment or all of these other things, or anger or whatever, that's okay. Hold space for yourself, but also know there's an opportunity when you keep evolving where you just see every single other person exactly where they need to be. And you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
That's all this time being so pissed off, but actually.
Yeah, the truth is that even the souls who aren't enlightened, that are playing different roles on this earth plane, they probably don't even understand. They might be thinking there's something wrong with them. They don't even understand the profound role that they're having. Sometimes it's the ones that are maybe grungy characters. It's like everything that's happening on the earth plane is just a movie. It's a play that's playing out, that's already been written in the higher dimensions. And in the higher dimensions, we're all holding hands having fun, right? We're gonna all take a bow together,
coaching ourselves. Get it,
right? we're going to all hold hands and take a bow at our performance on earth. And so enlightenment or not enlightenment doesn't even matter, because what really matters is that everybody's playing a different role in the play of life. And those that are playing like the darker characters, whatever, their role is profound in assisting to activate the others that are playing the role of enlightened beings. In the higher planes, we're all enlightened. That's really where we come from.
And helping this earth plane, this dimension, this world to evolve, because we all agree that, you know, physical and mental and spiritual abuse sucks, and nobody wants it anymore, and it's not good for us, but we keep doing it and repeating it and all these things. And so we all agree that we want to start to end this, to mend it, to heal it, to invite in more peace. We'd all love to see our new babies being born, coming into this earth where they're held by their amazing little communities and they have their unconditional, loving, free-range parents and all of this. But even those magical souls are still going to have to learn the boundaries of this realm and grow and learn and make mistakes in order to evolve. So we're always going to learn in this, I believe, in this similar way. But the more we keep healing ourselves, the lighter we can create this space, and the more loving and heartfelt and coherent we can make it. But we're never going to be able to, even in those new future amazing utopian ways we co-create, I think there's still going to be a little bit of suffering, a little bit of learning, and there needs to be in this human experience in order to keep evolving and growing. I don't think we're just going to bring heaven here and that's going to be that. I think Earth is going to keep being able to ascend more and more and more.
Here on this plane for sure, not in the new earth, not in the higher dimensions. So those souls that are ascending onto the 5D, that are not coming back to incarnate on the 3D plane, they'll have a completely different reality that is a lot more like Narnia or Avatar. That's really what the new earth template is like, and that's where they're ascending to. But here in this earth plane, while people are trying to integrate that 5D energy, you're right, that's going to be, they're going to continue to keep. I say there because I know I'm graduating, but I mean those that are going to be still living here and going through those things are going to be integrating for sure. However, what I was shown in my awakening is that there's going to be a split off of Earth. So the new Earth is kind of going to be ascending in this direction, and the old Earth and those that continue to do the darker things are going to go in a different direction. And so that's what I was shown is a split off. That's why you see a lot of those memes where there's a split off. That's a lot of those that have been awakened have seen that through visions. So what that means and how it's going to unfold is maybe yet to be seen. But and I think, again, that's one of those things where you have to personally experience certain things in relation to understanding those types of things, because as you probably know, that the spirit world, when you're revealed things through spiritual vision, it's very different than the human mind wants to wrap itself around. You don't receive spiritual vision that just show up like a picture, you know. You will sometimes do in your mind's eye, but you know what I'm saying. It's the spirit world works differently. Symbols and language and light language and all kinds of different things that you have to learn how to decode and interpret. Right. So how it's all going to unfold is hard to say per se. It's like getting a vision, and sometimes you see the vision, but how it unplays in the physical world can be a little bit different than what your vision was or dream.
And what I see for helping with co-creating is I just think of my own path, and I'm like, if I wasn't taught all these programmings, if I wasn't taught, you know, that as a woman I'm inferior, this or that, or whatever it was that we were conditioned into so many horrible things and to hate ourselves and all of this, if we can make that path a little bit clearer for the new ones coming in and learning, because souls, as they come and they reincarnate into this, they're getting more and more sensitive, and we are creating a more sensitive world, which is a good thing, because that means we're releasing some of the hardness around us, because we're highly sensitive beings. And so I just think it's going to be cool to see how, as you and I and all the rest of us keep having these conversations and people keep tuning in little by little, how much we do end up softening, you know, this 3D plane in a little while here. to help people to grow here in Earth School. And I think we're doing a beautiful job. We're better, you know, even though, yeah, this is not the easiest or most comfortable chapter we've had as humans with the COVID. It actually is. Like almost everybody in one way or another, you know, depending on where you were in the world, we had like a cell phone with instant technology in our hands where we were able to look up any information that we would have spent an entire lifetime looking for the time before, having, you know, certain access to certain things that we never had before. And even though, you know, there is still horrible abuse that does happen in this world, we are making a difference, and we are, you know, ending in each generation little by little parts of those. You know, some families finally stopped physical abuse, some families finally stopped certain addictions. Like there's always like room for evolving and for growing a little bit here and there. And we are, even though it feels heavy at times, each lifetime that we come back, we are doing this, and we're softening ourselves and this realm the best that we know how. And it's not an easy thing, especially we're being inundated with these negative programming all the time.
Right. And that's really what the soul mission is about when you're stepping into your Dharma, is to not do things for the self, but do things for the collective that are going to assist future generations. So you're planting a seed that those coming behind you are going to profit from. I personally, for me, I know that the work I leave behind on this planet is not for me. I'm not here for me. I'm done with that whole paradigm. I don't live in that reality. I'm here for the collective, and whatever I leave behind, be it books or teachings or writings or anything, art or whatever it is, it's for the ones coming in afterwards. And that's how we're going to begin to build the new earth, right? Is to continue to hold and anchor that Christic truth onto the earth plane and leave it for the next generations to come.
And then they'll keep doing it. There's kids who are discovering algae that eats plastic and stuff. And they're discovering that Wi-Fi isn't good for our vessels. And like, you know, it's like as doomy and gloomy as things are, I see just as much light and excitement and opportunity. But I'm going to tell you, you're not going to be able to see that until you do the dirty work within yourself and start being able to look on the outside of it.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what we do have to keep focused on, even though we need to look at the other stuff. We need to look at the other stuff so we know how to create the new direction, right? You got to see what you don't like. We don't like pedophilia, so how are we going to create the new direction where we don't allow it in? Or we don't like, you know, plastics. How are we going to go in the other direction where we don't have that on our planet anymore, and it's no longer going to harm people? But of course, as you know, we are dealing with the Archons, the Anunnakis, and the Cabal, and the control systems that they have at this time. And that's really where we have to buck the system and break free of that matrix system. So that's where our work is at this time. And that's why we're seeing so much unfoldment of, you know, riots and COVIDs and all kinds of other things, is that in reality, that's a manifestation of some Archon controllers. Some, you know, that we do have to move through as a species together, or, you know, we're going to have problems still. So,
and right here, right now is our opportunity to do that in your own sovereign little vessel by getting off of the programming, and by where all that positive affirmation work comes in. And like, in order to heal the dark, we must acknowledge it. We must see it. Just like Ellen said, like, yeah, pedophilia, pretty much most of us, unless you're involved in it, agree that we're not feeling that anymore in this realm at all. And so we need to do what we can. How do we do that? Well, we got to acknowledge it. We got to tend the wound. We got to put salt water in it and let it heal, and figure out what we need to do to bring light to it and bring it to the surface. Because when we stay in cognitive dissonance, when we ignore a lot of these things, they have opportunity to keep growing and festering because we have fear and we don't want to look at it. Just the same within our bodies. Like you were saying before, you know, you didn't know, you know, until you knew that your implants were poisoning you. But when you did, you figured it out, and then you had to address it and assess it and do what you needed to do to heal that wound, to bring yourself
quicker than shit. In the snap of a finger, they were out. There's no time to be messing around with your body, Templin. And of course, knowing what I know as an ascension guide and an ascended person, an enlightened person, it makes so much sense. Like, you stuck plastic in your body. What were you thinking? You know, duh. So it's so obvious to me, but I don't mean to say that to hurt anybody else that's not seeing it. You know, I'm just saying, for me, it's just like, wow, how did I not like connect the dots on that one? Granted, my work and my being guided into the quitting smoking was a tremendous layer of my journey. As I told you, I went through my Garden of Gethsemane experience, where I was being used to transmute energies and souls suffering, thousands and thousands of souls. My vessel was being used to help them to move through the fourth dimension. And it was a tremendous experience of suffering for 4 years. So I was focused on that, and I was focused on healing my lung. And so I can see why it took me a while to understand that I was going to have to do that too. And I'm not feeling like I was neglected by the divine or anything, because I know what I was going through up until that point. So I'm kind of quite sure that I don't think I would have been able to handle both at the same time. It was a lot that I was being put through.
And that's how I look at it with myself and with my healing journey. And I've needed little by little, and some things need to be released at certain times, and then other things need to be brought in at certain times, and we need to honor the balance of our vessel and what it's needing at that time. So that could have been shocking to do all of those at once to your system.
Yeah, I don't think I would have been able to handle it. I was literally fighting to save my vessel right after I quit smoking. So I was shown that I was going to have to do that. So I was working every day to rebuild my lungs. I was cognitively working with the light and restructuring my cells. I was doing a lot of light work on my own vessel to replenish and renew the damage that I did, and to heal and to save myself. And I was going to the gym, and I was working out, and I was doing breathing exercises and all these things. And it was a full-time job to do that. So I don't think I could have handled going through both at the same time, except that as I was fading out with the smoking thing, I was getting sicker in the bed. And it was like, shouldn't I be getting better and not worse? You know, that I started to really, and finally it was just like, look, I did everything you told me to do.
What is it?
Everything. And I need answers now, because if you don't fix this, I'm coming home. And I meant it. Like, I know that I wouldn't have survived much longer if I wouldn't have got to the root of what was causing me being in a sick bed too. Because I was going to the gym, and in the gym I was sitting in the sauna to detox from smoking. And I didn't realize that I was completely cooking those plastic bags, and they were releasing more poisons to me, and it was going straight to my brain and killing me. It's horrible. What I've learned about the breast implant illness is absolutely horrific. My experience is horrific, but I am deeply, see this shirt? Blessed. I am deeply blessed. I got to keep my own, and I have friends that did not. They lost both of their breasts because of these implants. They got cancer. They've lost organs. I have several friends that have gone through horrible things because of them. I'm so lucky that my situation, granted, I was getting extremely sick. I was on the scales of a more sick person from the breast implant illness, but I didn't lose my breasts, and I don't have cancer. That was a lot of light work to make sure that my vessel was healthy, that I was working on for decades. You know, I've been working on this for a long time. So I was lucky that I didn't have that manifest in the midst of everything that I was still dealing with, because I was working so hard with the light to do, the Ascension stuff. But, at the same time, I still have pain from it, and I'll still have years probably of suffering from it. And I don't think that any of us really have any idea the damage that we're going to be dealing with throughout our lives over it. It's like how do you really know what you would be like if you didn't drink fluoride in your water? What would you be like today?
Right.
What would you be like if you didn't have that gout in your foot? What would you really be like if you didn't have those ailments? And where are the ailments coming from? And why are we doing it to ourselves and each other? Because that's, like, imagine that the eternal essence of our soul, which is perfect, youthful, beautiful, eternally. Now imagine the youthful beauty and eternal glory and light that's in us, that we would be even looking like. We wouldn't have these wrinkles. These wrinkles came from all of that crap. The smoking, the poison, the boobs, the wrong mates, the everything. They wouldn't be here if we were always in alignment with our true original Christic coding, our true blueprint. We would be living way longer lives. We would be eating pure, beautiful food coming straight from the earth, Mother Earth's gifts, life-giving foods, right? We wouldn't have weight issues. We wouldn't have these things. Our organs are getting taxed. Our brains are getting taxed. Our hearts are getting taxed. Our bodies are fighting off and combating all of these horrific chemicals that should not be on this planet, let alone in our bodies. Imagine where we would be if we didn't have them. Can you imagine?
I can. And I just keep thinking about how many people are getting more and more sensitive, or realizing, like you had with your implants. And I have several friends who've had serious dental work issues and getting poisoning from dental implants and other things in our bodies. And, our bodies they're gonna tell you eventually. If you're not noticing it, if you're not in tune with it, it's eventually going to scream at you about things. And there's so many, things that can contribute to this. Not only our own thoughts, like, yes, we co-create, but there are lots of poisons in this world.
Well, that's exactly why I want to put that back out into the spiritual community, that somebody who gets sick or purges from breast implants or smoking or anything else isn't necessarily a lower vibration than you. They may be actually higher vibration, because they've done the energetic work that their vessel can no longer handle that stuff. The more light you take into your vessel, the more it will completely purge things that you really should have never done.
Yep.
Sorry, that's the cold, hard truth that nobody wants to swallow, but it's the truth. And you're not more high vibe just because you thought a positive thought and didn't get sick yet. You just haven't learned that lesson yet. You don't understand. And the more you keep raising your vibration, the more you may not like it, but you're going to have to change things. You're going to have to change things.
And sometimes it can be as simple as, I was listening to your last video about your breast implants, and I was just looking at you. And even from then, that video till now, I see so much even more light coming back to you and stuff. And it's just cool to witness. So I honor that. But you were talking about, just the bridge, like, yeah, a lot of us on the spiritual path, like, are pretty holistic and into a lot of Eastern medicines and natural things and herbal remedies. But at the same time, there is a place for Western medicine, in particular, orthopedics and emergency surgery and these things that we've spent lifetimes learning about the body. And there can be a beautiful bridge between both. I think when it comes to internal medicine and pharmaceuticals, we got like way too out of hand with that. And we can take a lot of notes from the Eastern communities and the ancients and the tribal traditions. But then when it comes to some orthopedics and life-saving surgeries, I am grateful those exist in this world, and for the amazing work, that the scientists and doctors have done. And just like you were given that shout out in your last video, or the breast implant one.
Well, thank you for reiterating that, because, there's a saying that says a speaker of truth has no friends. And when I say things like that, I piss off the people in the spiritual community, and I piss off the people in the Western medicine community, and I piss off, all kinds of people. But I'm just saying the truth is that the truth is in all things, and the truth is in balance. And I do love the spiritual community because of the fact that they're on the path of alignment, but they're still out of alignment if they're out of alignment. And you're out of alignment if you're poo-pooing on the souls that are doing some of that Western medicine work that is life-saving. And I am not and believe me, I've been in that mindset before, and I've done harm to the collective by stating things like, oh, boo-hoo, you know, Western medicine. But I'm in a stage now of my own evolution where I've integrated that also. And I value that the spirit works through all beings. And sometimes the spirit will even work through some of the lowliest of beings on the earth. And it doesn't mean they're enlightened or anything else. It just means that that's the way the spirit works. And the moment that we start poo-pooing on people, because that's just an ego mind to categorize everything, right? All the Western medicine's bad and all the spiritual stuff is good and all of the, you know what I mean? It's just the way the ego mind wants to categorize things. And the spirit does not work that way at all.
Not that I've seen so far.
Yeah. So love me, hate me, but it is what it is, you know.
That's
and
how
I'm
I
not going to
feel.
stop.
I can just show up in my current truth today.
Yeah.
Take it or leave it. I'm not for everyone.
And I'm not going to shut up either for anybody. So, you know, I'm here to serve the truth. I serve the divine, and I'm here for the collective. But, you know, if you're having a problem with what I'm saying, then you probably should look at that. That's because it means you're probably, you know, you're not seeing what I'm saying, or you're not ready to see it, or whatever. But I'm only speaking out of love and truth and experience.
Triggers are opportunities to heal and to bring yourself into a higher perspective of unattachment and neutrality.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I would just say, if something's really getting to me, what is it? And there is such a thing as sacred anger. If I see, you know, a puppy, I always use the example of puppy getting kicked or animal abuse or someone getting hurt.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that's going to set off some sacred rage in me. I should be triggered. Everybody else
I
should, but that's one of the few times I use it. Like, that's a pretty natural human reaction to that, because it's not okay. It's imbalanced.
That's
so then,
different than the trigger, though.
Bring that. Exactly. Those are the triggers that you honor and help you to bring into your intuition, into what is in alignment for you.
Right. Those are instincts. Those are sacred primal instincts that need to be honored, because that is your sacred soul telling you that what they're doing is wrong. And that's very different than being triggered and, you know, not wanting to face something within your own self that needs to be healed, and then projecting it onto somebody else because you yourself don't want to do your own inner work.
And you feel them in different places of your vessel if you let yourself tune in to where these energies come from and when.
Yeah, totally. Well, I am going to have to end the call because I need to get ready for my next session. But it was a pleasure again to talk with you. And it's been a long time, but it was really nice.
It was really nice, Ellen. I honor you. I'm so grateful to walk this path with you and to know you in this lifetime. And for those of you who've tuned into this discussion, stay tuned, because more will be coming.
Yeah, awesome. See you next time.
Take care.
Okay, bye.